podcast. I always love to start with that. I'd love to hear a 90-second pitch. One, who are you and what does your company do?
My name's Mel Sautter. My wife and I, Carol, and we have a passion for kids. Not just our kids. We have 3 kids, and we have 14 grandkids, and we now have 7 great grandkids. And with spouses, it's 31 kids. But I married into teenagers, and I just realized that there aren't resources and tools and guidance for parents to raise good kids. So our passion is to help parents and educators just inspire character in kids and just what we call help them become real MVPs,
That's
contributing
great.
members of society.
Yeah. So outside of, a lot of kids around, what is sort of the origin story? What's the spark? How does this just start to kind of come together as a project?
Well, it's really a mission for us. I was very successful in corporate America. I ran Fuji Film, a subsidiary of Fuji Film, and I was a vice president in AmerisourceBergen. So I was very successful. But one day, it was 30 years ago, but one day our 4.5-year-old daughter got on the phone. This is before cell phones. And
Hmm.
our 4.5-year-old daughter got on the phone and she said, "Daddy, do you think you can come home and visit mommy and me tonight?" Because I travel almost 100% of the time in my job. And I realized my priorities were messed up. So, my priority needs to be our family. Our priority needs to be our kid. Again, that's our legacy and really our future. So we started on this mission down the road. And 10 years ago, it came to real MVP kids or MVP kids from just a lot of learnings about we needed proprietary product. We needed to address all 4 ways kids learn. They learn through teachers, they learn through parents and siblings, they learn through friends, and they through entertainment. So we had to create just a method to be able to reach them coherently in all 4 ways through. And our kids we have 16 MVP kids that really every child can see themselves. So trusted friends is kind of the basis of how kids learn. So
That's awesome.
if our products, if our entertainment is communicating the same message that the parents communicating, kids are going to accept it. And so we want them to make friends with our kids.
Yeah. What was step one? What was is there a flagship product or a flagship idea? What was kind of the first step?
Our first step was creating a character Bible.
Mm,
And
okay.
it's an 80-page character Bible, and I mean, we go to, Myers on our 16 kids, we have 16 different Myers-Briggs personalities, and we
Okay.
define what each child is, and we know what so we create them from birth through 12, because basically our products are birth through 12, our kids grow up with them. We had to start by defining our kids, create kids. Started at 10, but through focus groups, it wasn't enough for every child to see themselves. So we expanded that. Then we created a structure of how kids learn from 0 to 12. So we start by trying to ignite passion for reading and learning. And then we go into just instilling emotional intelligence and social skills, and then to inspiring character. And then on top of that, then our building blocks are, then we go into ingraining mental health resilience. And we think if we can get that fabric of character in kids from 0 to 12, they're much more likely to succeed.
Yeah. What transferred over from the previous career to this? And then where did you see potentially, things that you wanted to learn or get better at from career one to where you are now?
Well, I started as a CPA, so then as I started running companies, complete U.S. company with Fujifilm subsidiary. That was very focused on commerce. It was focused on succeeding. It was a disruptive innovation, and at that time it was photo mini labs. So that was all business, and it wasn't about people so much. So I had just needed experts in mental health, and I needed experts
Hmm.
in how kids learn. I needed to work with teachers and mental health experts and parents. So we needed to be able to. I just needed to learn a lot. I needed to learn how kids learn. I didn't develop Fuji. I had a great child psychologist that I worked with very closely to help understand how kids learn at different ages and how we get there.
Sure. Sure. Did you have something in mind though when you were thinking about team members? Was there a starting point of like, I really want to focus on these types of maybe not employees, but just people that get on board with the mission? Like, how did you just start to think about putting this team together to help the vision?
Well, initially the team was about books. because we have a very unique mission. Our mission does not touch any of the social or religious agendas. We want every parent to be able to teach from their worldview. We want to fit into we're in Miami-Dade and we're in Broward County and we're in Pasadena schools. So it
Hmm.
can't be about any kind of religion. It just has to be. So everything we do is about universal virtues that cross every religion that every parent wants to teach themselves. So
Hmm.
we started with books because it's a unique mission. There's nobody like us. We've had three kids meals at Chick-fil-A, and each time we had to go through focus groups to make sure that it was community oriented and it fit every person in their restaurants.
Yeah,
So it was really, we started with illustrators and authors and teachers and child psychologists to create how they learn and how we wanted to develop series. So we have 10 series. We start with a board book that's a tummy time book that, I mean, you spread it out before a child can even toddle around. Because we want parents to read even when the kids are in the womb, because we think that transfers to a passion for reading and learning. So we started with the youngest, and now we're up to chapter books. So we just developed that kind of structure of learning. So as our kids grow up with the kids that are reading it, they can just learn along with them.
that's awesome. That's great. So it looked like you have really good partners from what I saw on the websites and some of the pages I've looked at. Let me talk to us about some of those, what those bring to the table, how you facilitate them, and what do they do for the whole project?
Sure. So, I mean, really, we're to the point now, we've created the company, we've created everything behind it, the resources. But what's really going to make us successful and get in people's homes and really in schools well is streaming. That's where our kids come alive. That's where little Joe identifies with Liam, or Sarah identifies with Anya, and they become really trusted friends. Our partners right now that we're focusing on, are really around creating animation and making our kids come alive. Our key partner is the best kid storyteller ever. His name's John Semper. You can look him up at johnsemper.com. He introduced Jim Henson to the world through
Mm,
Fraggle Rock.
mm,
He has worked. He's responsible. You would know him best. They just did their third anniversary at Comic-Con for his Spider-Man animated series on
mm,
television.
mhm.
He's working right now with Al Roker on a story called Weather Hunters on PBS. He's worked with George Lucas. He's just worked with all of the great people. He's the best and most creative storyteller I've ever met. And so we're working on trying to create an animated series that helps celebrate differences. It helps kids go on an adventure. So it's called Robo Builders. So each child creates their own robot, basically, that they can take adventures into the heart of a volcano, or up into a thunderstorm, or just race cars or whatever, without really having the kids in danger. They're doing it through their robots, their bot. And it's a John Semper creation, and you can see we have a 4-minute trailer to get an idea of what it will look like. Uh, he's really the core of our stories, and then we have a partner by the name of Toons Media. It's a worldwide, one of the leading animation companies in the world. They have 11 global offices. They're going to really help us get this distributed worldwide once we create it. And we have another partner by the name of Black Box. They're really into marketing ahead, but the three of us, or all of us, are doing is we want to create the episodes. They're 11-minute episodes. We want to create, so a season on television or on PBS is 13 30-minute episodes. So we've cut it down into 26 half-hour episodes, which is really an 11-minute animation plus titles and all that stuff.
Mhm.
So every other week, we'll release a new 11-minute episode on YouTube. But as soon as that pilot's introduced, Tunes will help us start looking for broadcasters and partners and people
Excellent.
to get it out. So it'll be on YouTube for people who invest to be able to see early, but our
Mhm.
goal is to get it broadcast internationally.
That's great. That's great. How do you guys go about protecting these IPs and going through that process? So, as investors are looking at this, how are you securely making sure that these ideas are yours and are protected?
We have a great IP partner, a council. We have over 30 trademarks. Our kids are all copyrighted, uh, certifiably copyrighted. It doesn't have a little C on it, but they're
Hmm.
registered copyrights. And we have trademarks for MVP Kids and Real MVP and Real MVP Kids and Entertainment with Purpose and our curriculum name and still we just have over 30 trademarks that are registered. They've been around. We started 10 years ago, and so they're very ingrained and not stealable.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's got to protect this stuff. How do you guys think though, as you're growing, introducing new characters, maybe polishing them up, testing them? How do you sort of just introduce and think about the characters as they get into books, animations, all the different properties that you have?
Well, we started, I mean, you'll find this true with even Snoopy, but we started with a style of illustrations that was really created to be proprietary for our books that looked different than any others. As we connected with John Semper, he said, I know that doesn't work. The kids have to be more relatable. So you can find on our website how we've taken the kids from this kind of proprietary type illustration for board books to what it is now for animation. And as if you look at our trailer, our 4-minute sample of what we hope to do, you will see the way they look. And John Semper has so much experience. He has over
Hmm.
40 years experience in
Right.
Hollywood. He hates us to call it Hollywood, but in animation and storytelling that he helped me started about 4 or 5 years ago. And we started kind of evolving our kids so that when we were able to do animation, they were ready to go.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
But
How do you,
Gabby's still Gabby. She might have a little bit different look on her face. Her eyes might be different. Her mouth might have kind of a half thing versus a real, but you can still know it's Gabby. You can still know it's
yeah, it's it's great. I want to talk a little bit. So, I want to ask a question around people who may have not ever invested in entertainment like this or in in a project like this. So, I don't want to talk specifically, just about your terms or anything like that. But where does a project like this really make the money for investors to understand what's happening in this? Because if you're saying it's going on YouTube, I get my YouTube for free. PBS, that's for free, right? Or I turn on my TV and it's there. So obviously you have the properties, you have the books, but how do people just look at this and go, This is where money comes in. This is how we make money." The properties, the books, the characters, they grow, right? They get more and more. They're like Mickey Mouse. You know what I mean? We all know that now. So it takes some time. But just how do you people sort of think about what investing in just something like this would even look like? What does that look like?
so excuse me. So returns. So I don't have experience in it. I depend very
Mm,
heavily on Tunes, who has done this many times. And
mhm.
actually, if you go to our mvpkids.com/invest, you'll see some case studies from Tunes where they've done it. They project that within 2 to 3 years, we'll get our money back on the investment in the episodes. And then the money is returned initially from licenses to broadcast. So when we think of PBS or we think of ABC or whomever, it's a US company. It's a fraction of the international market, and that's why it's so great to work with Tunes because
Mhm,
they're gonna license it in India, and they're gonna license it in Africa,
mm,
and they're gonna license in
mhm,
Australia and Ireland, and broadcast licenses is a good part of the stream of income. And then licensing for toys to like Hasbro
mm,
or whomever is another way that we make money.
mhm,
Our
mhm.
best money is on our own merchandising.
Right.
So we'll be able to sell toys and games and puppets with the merchandise. And it'll also make what we do currently with our books and our curriculum much more successful. When the kids want Gabby in their classroom or mom, you can look at it at Dora. Our granddaughter wanted Dora all over her room.
Right.
So she wanted posters and she wanted backpacks and she wanted t-shirts. Well, that's where the greatest part of money is in merchandising.
Mhm,
That
mhm,
really happened. Tunes is great partners with retailers around the world. So they're partners with Walmarts in India, or
mm,
whomever,
mhm,
the
mhm.
Costco's in Africa. So they partner with us to be able to distribute merchandise, not just the film itself.
Yeah. How do you stay focused as these opportunities are kind of coming up and as you're guiding the ship, especially maybe when it gets into merch? Like, do you guys have a philosophy of like, we're going to put this on everything? Maybe the Gene Simmons of Kiss route, like put it on, put whatever on anything. Or do you guys have sort of a plan of like, no, we want to be focused on this. We want it to be strategic. Just how do you guys sort of think about that inside the company when it comes to opportunities around merch and stuff like that?
Well, certain merchandise we'll want to control ourselves. So what goes into
Hmm.
schools,
Hmm.
homeschools, what goes with parents, we have puppets. So I'm sure, we have Keon as a puppet,
Hmm.
and we really developed it for our curriculum. So things that go directly with what we do in books and puppets and curriculum, we will do ourselves. So we'll have
Hmm.
direct control. Beyond that, we have a style guide. So Gabby has to be Gabby has to be Gabby. That's why we created our character Bible so that we have a definition of what Gabby has to be, and then we always
Hmm.
have veto rights. I personally always have veto rights on everything that goes out MVP Kids.
Hmm.
So it just has to represent who MVP Kids is well. If we get into anything that's software or AI or anything in the future, man, it's going to have to be tested to the hilt because it cannot misrepresent us. It can't take us kids. Parents have to trust us.
Sure.
Educators have to trust us. So it's really, we have a pretty high level of what it will require. It can't be just Gabby to be a doll. Gabby has to represent the character who Gabby is, and we have to approve it before it goes.
Sure, sure, sure. Over these next 12 months, I want to talk a little bit about sort of milestones. What do you guys sort of have as milestones that you want to hit, maybe for this next year, maybe even 3 years out? Just what are some of the bigger goals right now?
Well, if we can raise $100,000 by the end of December or the early January, first goal is to create the pilot for RoboBuilders so we can socialize at what's called Kid Screen in February. That's where all of the major broadcasters in the US are coming to look at what's available and see if we can get some licenses just from the pilot itself.
Yeah.
And then we will start to build these 26 episodes ahead of time, kind of bank them because you can't create an animated 11 minutes in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
So
no, you can't.
we'll have to get ahead so that starting in July, then once every 2 weeks, we'll release a new one so that parents will know, teachers will know that the 1st of July, they'll be able to go find the first 11 minutes. 15th of July, they'll be able to go look at the next 11 minutes. The
Hmm.
1st of
Hmm.
August, they'll look at the next 11 minutes. And between them in a year, we'll have a full 13 full half-hour episodes to be able to license to a Apple or to license to
Right.
an Amazon or a PBS or whomever, and internationally. It won't be just in the US, but internationally. So that's kind of our timeline is we want to create the pilot in January so that we can socialize it in February and then really create the next episode so we get kind of a bank of them up through July 1st and then start releasing them. The model of releasing on a periodic timetable like that is Toons' model. They've been very
Hmm.
successful at it. It's got to be consistent so people know when to go.
Right. Yep. Yep. Yeah. That
If
makes
it's
sense.
every Friday, the other Friday, whatever it is, they
Hmm.
did 5.5 minutes so that they could
Hmm.
create every week on a Friday, they'd release the next one. I trust John Semper wholeheartedly, and he's just convinced that you can't tell a really good story in 5.5 minutes. It takes
Yeah.
an 11-minute episode to really tell a good story.
Yeah, I can see that. I can totally see that. How do you guys think about navigating, maybe this YouTube world a little bit? I'll speak when my kids were really little. We actually had to pull them off of like some of the content on YouTube was it was clearly frying their brains in way, and they were kid shows, right? Like
Yep. Yeah.
all organized as kid stuff, and we just found them. It was almost like this silly humor, gag humor. We found it at the dinner table, and we ended up having to just we got to shut this off. So I guess how do you guys sort of think about navigating, I don't know, your content jumping into an algorithm on a random day of all this other stuff and all this other noise? Like, do you think about that? Do you think that don't worry about it too much? I guess just how do you sort of navigate and think about what YouTube is for kids, because I think it's the Wild West. So
Oh, it
yeah.
is the Wild West.
Yeah.
Internet itself is the Wild West.
Yeah.
Well, just to tell, so the people that have experience in streaming and television, there's kind of an inside joke that Disney's goal is a laugh every 3 seconds.
Mm.
That is not our goal. Our
Hmm.
goal is kids learn through laughing, but it's gotta be learning through laughing, and you can't set that up every 3
Right.
seconds.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
we need to create a brand. That's what the last 10 years has been about, that parents can go look at and discover. That's why we did all these books, so that they can look and see who we're about and what our kids are about, that they can earn a trust. We have to have a trusted brand.
Mhm.
First of all, we
Mhm.
have to have a trusted brand, and then the $600,000 we're trying to raise, 400 of it is for those 26 episodes, 200 of it is for marketing. So, through marketing is how we communicate to parents, how we communicate to educators what our brand is about, give them examples, let them learn to trust us. So, it's like, I know I was just with a couple parents and they trust Bluey.
Mhm.
So they don't let their kids on anything, but they trust Bluey. Well, we need to gain that trust as MVP kids. And
Mhm.
that's part of going back to an earlier question you had is we need to really police our brand. We need to make sure our brand is always never one failure that parents can trust. And that's a significant part because we want to hit 100% of kids, not 50% that are this religion or this
Mhm.
percent or this percent. We want every parent to be able to bring our stories into their house or into their school and be able to just inspire character and ingrain mental health resilience, teach skills, but through laughing, through stories. Kids
Mhm.
learn best through stories.
Mhm.
We need them to trust our kids.
Yeah. Has there been a parent frustration that has sort of popped up multiple times as you're navigating these waters, putting out content, books, et cetera, 10 years, have you heard a consistent frustration from parents around educational content or anything that's sort of kinda, "Oh, I've heard that 3 or 4 times." Anything like that?
Well, I've heard it 100 times, and that is the agendas that are built into entertainment today. It's built into curriculum, and that's part of why we are so strict on no religious, no social. Now, they're you could call them universal virtues that have a religious attributes to them, but we never promote a religion. We never promote a social agenda. We
Mhm.
never promote any politics whatsoever because that's the biggest frustration with parents and educators. People that are buying the curriculum are board members that really haven't delved into it. And then they get into teaching it in their classroom, and there's something that has a social
Mhm.
agenda built
Mhm.
into it. Parents, they have to read every book in the library now because you never know what's built into that book that is something that doesn't fit their worldview. Okay,
Mhm.
we create a universal virtue worldview that every parent can trust. And that's just really critical to what we do. And that's unique to what we do. I don't know of anyone else that isn't doing some kind of an agenda in what they're doing. We want to
Yeah, that's
inspire
great.
character in every child. We want every child to be a real MVP and to be
Yeah.
a contributing member.
Yeah. So as a longtime, sort of entrepreneur working in business, what's like a skill set that you've really kind of go back to, or a skill set that you're glad that you have as you're navigating these highs and lows of running a business, just talking to other entrepreneurs, just so how do you help guide them as to like, you really want to focus on this or don't focus on that, block out that noise. What would you say is your best virtue around that?
I think the most important thing is clearly defining the mission and the vision. Only bring partners that fit that. So, I mean,
Hmm.
even with the icons like John Semper, we
Hmm.
went through an extensive his worldview is totally different than mine. His background, he's from Boston. He graduated at Harvard. He was the first successful Black Hollywood writer and
Hmm.
showrunner. His perspective on life is totally different than mine, and that's great.
Sure. Yeah.
But we have to make sure that it's great and it
Hmm.
isn't fighting. Tunes,
Right.
the CEO from Tunes is in India. Totally different background, totally different
Hmm.
perspective. Talk about a worldview different, India
Yeah.
versus Arizona, it's totally different.
Right.
But our goal is the same. We wanna raise good kids, and here's how we wanna raise it. So that's that because partners have to fit
Hmm.
into that vision and mission.
Yeah.
You have to find people who contribute. I'm not into yes men. I don't. I
Hmm.
person that means nothing to me. I don't need pats on the back. I need people who bring value to the project so that we can bring it together better. So
Yeah.
that's
So
probably
so currently. Yeah. So I know I want to wrap up the last question here. So I know currently right now we're fundraising, or you're out fundraising, I should say. And you've mentioned it a couple of times, what the use of funds would probably be for. So just walk us through, how do you sort of think about fundraising in general? How are you trying to hit these milestones? And just kind of how do you sort of just position yourself to get ready for raising capital and going out and trying to raise that money?
The world's changed, and it's really changed a lot in fundraising. I've
Hmm.
been raising funds for 30 years. I probably raised $100 million, but always from accredited investors.
Hmm.
And finding accredited investors that want to invest in a project like this, everybody talks about kids, but investing it in books and curriculum is not AI glitzy. So that's been my biggest challenge since COVID, actually. Up until 2021, we were very successful. But then I also had one of the people that really helped me create the concept of MV Kids was a man by the name of Jim Flash. He was the entrepreneur partner of Excel Partners in Palo Alto. He was very successful. When I met him, he was running six company. He had a company in Israel. He was running Walmart.com. So he had all these contacts with accredited investors. So unfortunately, he passed away around the COVID time, and I lost that person that had the
Mm.
contact. And then
Yeah.
when COVID hit and schools closed and libraries closed, it's been hard for me to be successful in raising capital since. So we've gone from publishing focus to streaming focus because entertainment still have people that invest in entertainment.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I've kind of shifted our focus where we were going anyway, eventually, but our focus now is the streaming series because we're much more likely to find investors when they see it on excuse me.
Yeah. Well, where can people dive in if they're interested in this conversation, interested in learning more? Where should we send them?
They can go to mvpkids.com/invest, and we have case studies on there. We have a sale. We have some customer testimonials. We have the Robo Builders teaser. So we have quite a bit of things on there. And then if they're interested in from there, they can go to our Net Capital crowdfunding, or
Hmm.
they can reach out to me at m.sautter@mvpkids.com. That's my email. And if they're a accredited investor and are interested in safe notes, we have a complimentary Reg D offering. So that would be
That's
the
great.
way to find out about it.
That's awesome. Well, Mel, I'll let you get back to it. I know you're busy, got a lot of stuff going on. This was a great conversation. For all my listeners out there, you've probably been here before if you're a listener. So, I have all the links in the show notes. Go check this out. Really interesting stuff. I love what the project's doing. It speaks to, to some of the stuff that I've done in the past, but my kids were smaller. But I just love what the project is, and I'm wishing you nothing but success. And again, investors out there, go check this out. Really interesting project. Mel, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you very much.